All right, continuing data analysis. So we know how to filter. Now we want to be able to generate new variables. All right, so I'm going to turn off my filters. All right, now I want to create a variable. So here I have a variable of female. So this variable in column F takes on a 1 if the person's a female and 0 if not. And so I want to create a variable over here, which I'm going to call male. So I want this variable to equal 1 if a male and 0 if a female. So here I can use a simple if command. I can do equals if. Now, as I type this out, you'll see it tells me here my logical test, my value of true and value of false. The other way I can do this, if I click fx, it'll actually open up, whoops. If I go fx, I can click on if, and it'll open up a wizard for me. All right. So what it's doing is I type into this wizard, is it'll actually insert things in here. So my logical test is if female equals 0. All right. So I want if female equals 0, then give me the value of 1. If female doesn't equal 0, give me a value of 0. So I click OK, and I find that that is a 0. That's okay because this person's a 1. That means they're a female, therefore this should be a 0. I double click, and now I have generated a variable for male, all right, where it has all of that. I can do other things. So I can create a variable called high school, if I can, grad. So I want to know if they graduated high school. I can assume that's going to take on a value of 1 if they have at least 12 years of education. So I go equals if. Now I could go to the wizard, but I'm going to do it by hand. As I do it by hand, it'll tell me what I need to do. First, my logical test. So if education is greater than or equal to 12, then give me a value of 1. If not, give me a value of 0. And that's how we set up that. So I click OK. And something crazy happened. That's because I didn't quite do it right. So I need to make sure I do comma 0 there. And now I double click that down. And now it's a 1 if they have 12 years. So this person has 11 years. They didn't quite finish high school, so therefore it's a 0. So that's how I can use the if command to generate variables. The other way I can do it is I can do what's called an interaction. So I want to create a variable called married female. Okay. So what I want is if female is 1 and married is 1, let's see where the married people, there they are. All right. If female and married are 1, I want this value to equal 1. If not, I want it to be 0. So I could do an if command. The other thing I can do is just equals married time or female times married. So this value will only take a 1 if they're both married and female. So this first observation is female. Let's see if I can get my finger right. Female, but not married. So 1 times 0 is 0. And so it'll take on a value for anyone that is either a male or unmarried. And it'll take on a value of 1 if they're both married and a female. That individual there. This individual here. All right. So that's how I can do an interaction term to create a married female. All right. So now we've done 2 different ways to create new variables. Let's do a third way. All right. Let's try to do this married female by simply doing an if statement. Okay. So I'm just going to we'll keep that. So this is going to be equal. Whoops, not that. Okay. So this is going to be married female, so we'll call this married female also. And we want to do this now with an if statement. All right, so let me slide this over so we can see it a little better. Okay, so we want this to equal, okay, the question here is if, now here it's not just if one variable equals 1, but we need to do 2 variables. So within our if statement, we want to include an and statement. So there needs to be 2 things true. So value of true, value of false. I'm sorry, within the and statement, you'll see we have logical 1 and logical 2. So these are the statements we want. So if female equals 1, comma, and married equals 1, so that's now our and statement. Now we need to finish with our if statement. Then give us a value of 1. If not, give us a value of 0. And we click OK. We get 0. Now if I drag this down, it should be exactly the same as what we did before. So now we've done two ways to do married female. Well, let's see if we can do a married male. So there's two ways we can do this. We can do the interaction of just V2 times G2, but I'm going to do an if statement. I'm going to do it slightly different than the one we did before. So this is going to equal if, and now I'm going to put my and statement. So if female, now I want doesn't equal 0. So to do doesn't equal, you do greater than or less than, or not 0 but 1. So if F2 is not 1, meaning they're male, comma, and married equals 1, then give me a 1 back because that means they're a married male, and if not, give me a 0 back. So now we double click that down, and now we've created married male. So this is a 0 female, so that means they're a male, and they're married, therefore that should give us a 1, and it does. So there are different ways we can generate variables with the if statement and with the interaction term.